chicken coop. Aden watched it glide past the seaside park at the tip of the northeastern leaf. During the war, which had been brief for Oceania until Gretia had subdued and occupied the planet, the Oceanians had used these hydrofoil cruisers to good effect against the attackers as highly mobile seaborne anti-air platforms and artillery support. The mood in Adrastea had changed a little in the 2 weeks since the insurgent attack on Rhodia, but the hydrofoil cruiser off the coast was the first visual indicator that Oceania was preparing for conflict. The tourist crowds from all over the system were thinner than usual, and the chatter on the streets was more subdued. Aden stepped around a cluster of Palladians who were showing off the panorama to some far-off friends or relatives via ComTab projections, chattering and gesturing. Palladian was the one language in the system in which he could not even guess at the content of a conversation, but the laughs and the facial expressions supplied that information clearly enough. He returned a few smiles from the group and continued his path along the seawall, following the far-off warship with his eyes until it disappeared behind the skyline of the neighboring leaf. The sight of it reinforced the unwelcome memories of the end of the Grecian occupation that had been triggered by his encounter with the suspicious woman at the food shop. An alliance fleet had shown up in orbit, chased off the garrison force, and landed troops on every Oceanian city to pry off the Grecians. It had been Aden's last day of freedom for the next 5 years. The alliance had achieved complete surprise. The morning had started out like this one, a perfect sunny 20-degree day with a light breeze, and by noon, the sky had been dark with troop landers and attack craft. Some of the Grecian detachments on other cities had put up brief and futile fights, but the garrison commander on Adrastea had surrendered almost immediately. After 4 years of war, Adrastea had been mostly an R&R area for the troops coming back from the meat grinder at Pallas and the fleet actions in space, and they'd had neither the numbers nor the will for a pointless fight. Before the end of that day, Aden had marched his entire signals intelligence company onto the central island into detainment, past jeering Oceanian civilians and grim-looking Alliance soldiers. The sight of the gunship cruising on the tranquil waters just off the outer edge of the city brought back the feelings of that day, the fear, shame, and anxiety. Someone had run up to their column and spit at him that day, and the memory of it came back as vividly as if it had happened an hour ago. The man had meant to spit in his face but had hit the collar of his blackguard's uniform instead, where the spit had trickled down the branch insignia and onto the fabric of the tunic. It was strange. He could clearly remember everything about that incident and how he had left the spit to dry on his uniform because he didn't want to smear it into a bigger blotch trying to wipe it off. But he couldn't remember any encounter that day with the woman he just met in the food shop. He barely recalled the registration procedure at the spaceport, where the Alliance Marines had corralled them into groups by rank and searched them for contraband before letting the civilians assign them to shuttles. Aden shook his head and tried to clear the unwelcome recollections from his mind. The breeze out here on the tip of the northeastern leaf was clean and pleasant, and the warm food in his hands smelled appetizing through the perforated lids of the containers. This was the present, the here and now, and he tried to return his focus to what was in front of him. But as he walked back toward the place where he was staying, he could still feel the gaze of the woman from the shop on the back of his head, and he had to turn around to make sure she wasn't following him, alerting passerby that a fuzzhead, an occupier, a warmonger, was walking among them again. The suite he had rented here on the most scenic part of the leaf was probably a little extravagant for a rookie spacer. But the advice of his friend and crewmate Tristan had been never to be stingy with accommodation, food, or drink, and just be miserly with everything else instead. The room was shaped like a rounded flower petal, jutting out from the side of the resort building in a way that offered a 180-degree view of the ocean without looking into any neighboring suites. Most importantly, resorts that catered to well-to-do people had much enhanced security.